Welcome, everybody, to the Loud and Drunk podcast. This is Dan, and summer is coming to a close, and that means all the kids are going back to school. There's pretty much no one I feel worse for than the young kids, because school is essentially prison when you're like a younger kid. Like, let's just say, actually, you know what? This might be lowballing it. I was going to say 10 and under, but it's for all ages. But
I think it's built in.
Yeah, it's like 13.
Dan, it's the same as work.
Yeah, it's awful.
We just call it different things when we reach a certain age.
But it's like an 8-hour day, Moses. You're just like, you get transported to this one place. You go from class to class to class. One of the teachers might be a complete bitch, and the other one might just be a complete asshole. And I can't say the other word, especially this close into the podcast.
And they expect things from you.
Yes, they expect things. There's a power dynamic there.
Yeah, there is a power dynamic.
But if you get a good Obersturmführer, then it can be very nice to be in school.
I'm sorry, sir. Who are you?
My name is Hans.
Hans. Is that it? You're like Madonna, just one name?
I prefer not to give my last name, but I am from Argentina, if you must know.
Okay.
It's Von something.
Yeah.
No one said that. I don't know how you knew that.
But Justin, when we talk about school,
yes.
Do you kind of track with what I'm saying? Like, it's like prison for children?
I absolutely track with that. So we'll get into it. But I had multiple, when I was very young, grade school, I think looked forward to school, even though I should have hated it. I was a classified child I had a speech impediment. So I had to do all extra things. As an adult that deals with 680 houses a day, I also see the kids, and it's awful. It's awful.
But before we get started, I just want to encourage all of you out there that if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, make sure that you smash that like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our content. If you like this episode and you want to chime in on the conversation, leave a comment. If you're listening to us on another platform, make sure that you subscribe.
Wherever you find us.
Wherever you find us. Make sure that you are hitting us up at patreon.com/loudanddrunk if you want to support this podcast. And if you're like, Dan, there's so many links, I don't know what to do. Bookmark loudanddrunk.com. It will take you to all of our social media platforms. It will take you to YouTube, to Rumble.
It is
everywhere that is Loud and Drunk.
It truly is everything. Any entity and way you could listen to us, it's right there. Loudanddrunk.com. Go visit it. And also we have merch, and it's, if you like it, check it out and get some weird ass shit to wear.
All right, guys, let's get into this. School is upon us. Traffic's going to get a little worse locally. And these kids, these 4 kids, they got to go sit in this classroom now, multiple classrooms potentially, and study shit that they don't really need it in the outside world.
I think I want to kind of take the lead on this. So we're all late 30s, crushing on 40.
Bless.
Children, shut up. I actually have memories of some of this shit. I remember kindergarten. Obviously, there's kindergarten, and I remember even before that. Outside, what would you call it?
Pre-K or
pre-K. I remember I went to. It was called a nursery school.
I think generally nursery.
It's
school.
a church
There's
now.
some kind of in between there. Before you're actually going to a more structured school or schedule.
Yeah, you learn how to play with blocks. You get a nap time.
It's more or less just like the waiting room when you're playing a game online.
Yeah,
and it's just in there with people just to kind of mingle and get a feel, and then
it's a place where your parents need to stick you because they have work.
Well,
yeah. Well, there's that too.
So whatever, the pre-K, whatever. I actually have memories of that, which I will not get into this time because I think a lot of it shaped me as my weird person that I am today. But I remember going to kindergarten and around here, I guess the thing is when you prep to go to kindergarten, there's a day where your parents jump on a bus with you and you go to the school, and it's a whole try to make you comfortable.
Oh, I see. All right.
I'm a fairly smart kid with some weird twinges, which wouldn't be probably diagnosed for another 40, 30 something years. I remember going to pre-K, which is all I really remember myself is you went there and you got a cardboard box of juice or milk. And some nonsense. Yeah. But my mom told me, oh yeah, they tried to fail you out of kindergarten because you had shitty scissors skills.
What does that
Isn't that
mean?
the weirdest thing? Oh.
You couldn't cut like the star or whatever.
Well, they
the heck.
give you shitty scissors when you're in kindergarten.
That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
So, like, if anybody's been to, you remember those ambidextrous, red-coated scissors. And I have another story which I'll talk. I gotta say it now, but it's not gonna ruin anything. When I was in 7th grade, we had my first class where we did dissection. We had to dissect a scuttlefish.
Oh.
With those ambidextrous red-handled scissors. Because the school district would not spend any money.
That's how Mengele did it too.
And it's like, I don't remember a whole lot about anything, but like I distinctly remember that just trying to cut around a squid, like the cuttle bone, that it looks like a solid piece of gelatin.
Like their beak or
No. It actually goes through the hood type part. It maintains the shape. It looks like clear plastic.
I was there 10 years before you. I can't remember that now.
The year was 1933.
Yeah.
Cuttlefish were just invented.
The trolley cost a nickel to get to school.
Cuttlefish is just laying there. Kill me.
Kill me now.
Now I'm just envisioning the scene of like a young Moses in 1933. He's got like an apple. He's got like
19.
those
All right.
He's got like 3 books like tied together like the old-timey way the kids carried them.
It was in a rucksack.
He may or may not
With
be
the
a
belt.
lich.
I'll be honest though, it's funny that you went in that direction because I genuinely I also envisioned this, but it was in like a fucking Fallout video game kind of feature, and he's the only one in there, and he talks to a computer most of the time, and he just like keeps failing the dissection, but then eventually he gets it right, and the door just opens, and this is the Moses that we know. All that he's done is dissect cuttlefish for 40 years.
There is historically a kid that is locked away from the date of the bombs dropping in a refrigerator.
Shit. Man, I never actually played the game. I just have a show.
You just described the entire video game. What do you mean you've never played it?
That's awesome. Yeah.
You're a fucking liar.
I should write video games.
Well, so let's get down to brass tacks. It's still more or less the same. We operate under the same principle. You go to school from essentially September to like mid-June.
Yeah.
Depending on school days and shit like
And
that.
depending on the school you're going to.
Snow days, sorry.
The Jewish community around here goes a bit more often.
Do they?
Do they?
Yeah.
What?
What? I remember having Jewish...
the holidays are the holidays.
Jewish holidays.
You have off of those.
Has that changed?
Yeah.
No, the Jewish community goes like they're
You're talking about Orthodox and
that's a
Hasidic?
different thing altogether.
Yeah, that's a totally separate thing.
None of us are
going to school.
I mean,
School
we
is
have
cool.
of Jewish descent person here, but like
Hello.
he cannot.
It doesn't matter who put that number on my arm, Dan. It could have been anybody.
I'm sorry, but like we always observe the primary Jewish holidays around here.
No, but they go for like longer.
They might.
I don't know. Maybe just let it go, Moses.
Well, there's also too like it does change because like in certain states, particularly in the South, they start earlier.
Well,
So, like,
yeah.
they start in like July, August.
Well, also like
I've seen August.
so we live in Northeast. Catholicism is king. If you go down to the South, it's Baptist.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of different values on days and things. But like I'll go back to grade school, which I think is a good point to start. You don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, like they wanted to leave me back in kindergarten, which is your first step into fucking schooling, because I
that
couldn't
shouldn't
cut
really
a
be
straight
a thing.
line with garbage scissors.
I feel like the general notion of that, to tie in with that, it's entirely about, I view the education system as one in which it's about making you into, and I'll tie in with that, it's a cookie cutter person.
Well, they're trying to get the best of the means.
Well, even beyond that, I think that it's very much so about making a good citizen out of you. And by that, I mean somebody who is able to, obedience. I think that's a part of it.
Orders,
somebody who,
be on
somebody who
time.
wants to fit in.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody who's happy to take the orders, etc. All of these really basic things. I think that all of these other things that we tend to focus on, like the how you operate scissors or this or that, it's really just comes down to how well do you listen, how well do you obey, how hard are you willing to work,
and what
to do
direction
this
should we
stuff?
push you?
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so depressing for me, because I see all these kids like 7, 8 years old. They should be running around like eating dirt, whatever the fuck kids do. And they're forced to sit in a chair for 8 hours and study things that they don't want to fucking learn. They're not going to fucking need to know in the outside world. Like, oh yeah, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. These kids gotta do their fucking
Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Fuck you, who's a Genovese fucking asshole.
Yeah.
That's actually the only way I could remember what days have 30 and 31.
Oh, well, I still struggle with that.
Oh, you know what's actually really funny? One of my when I was in the Navy, one of my chiefs had the knuckle policy.
Oh,
so
did he?
Just like, yeah.
Oh,
so
I have seen that, yeah.
So if you don't have the knuckle, I think it's, what is that, 31?
Yeah.
So
this is hilarious.
The poem
So,
I could recite right now.
I know of this. And like I have been taught this, and I have rejected it still to this day.
It flows.
I don't
I
give
forget
a
who
fuck.
wrote it. Maybe you could look that up. I know it's somebody
No
somewhat.
one needs to look that.
No. And like people look at me, they're like, oh, I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
It doesn't matter.
It does when you're filling out your calendar on the refrigerator.
You have more problems than I
The
can.
calendar already tells you how many fucking days are there.
I am
You're not
playing
writing the
Candy
calendar as
Crush.
you go
I can't
along.
look at the
You're not
calendar.
reading the stars to see how many fucking days there are in the month.
is this an argument about a calendar?
I think
Yes.
so. I think so. Let's bring it back.
Sorry.
So like, I had a very weird kind of relationship with schooling. So I was kind of like a good kid through like grade school, like A's and B's, not like killing anything, but like good. And then middle school came, and then I was like, I almost got left back in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Straight up. So like elementary school, like it was whatever. Also, this is a quantifier. Through elementary school, literally from 1st grade through 5th grade, which that's how it was. So like kindergarten, 1st grade to 5th grade was elementary school. Middle school was 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then high school is 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
Quick side note for me, middle school was 2 years.
Yeah.
7 and 8. We were in the same middle school.
7 and 8.
That's what I was trying to
Not
call it.
relevant, but just say
That's a little bizarre.
No, but
I would actually agree more with the 6, 7, 8, honestly, just because like when you're a 6th grader and you're around kindergartners, there's such a huge age gap. Like, what the hell is happening?
in fairness,
some kids are growing like facial hair.
it's inherently flawed just because you're trying to throw people into these groups, which is really where this problem originates.
See, because I went to school where it was kindergarten through 8th.
And when were you like 30 when you were in kindergarten?
Well, it was at least 130 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, kids are doing crack and
But it was like
Let
there
me
was
hate
a big, like it was a small school. Like there was only one class for kindergarten, one class for first, and so forth.
Yeah, no.
well, Moses was the one who invented crack.
Yeah, but like
You're welcome, Reagan.
my actual neighborhood friends went to Catholic school, which was very different
Yeah.
to me. I was in the public school system.
We didn't get off for Jewish holidays.
Yeah, no. I did all right, but I was not a kid that was allowed to have recess because I just didn't do homework. And this will continue all the way through my college career. So, yeah, elementary school did fine. Now, in middle school, now you have multiple teachers that teach different things.
Yeah.
I went into 6th grade, and I guess decided I didn't want to do fucking anything. I had a teacher, fuck him, name drop, Mr. Kerr, and Miss Rose. She's dead now, so I don't care.
I know Kerr.
Yeah.
God bless.
So at that point, I had those 2 teachers. Mr. Kerr taught, believe, English and probably English and history. Miss Rose taught math and whatever. And
science.
Yeah, science. And that's the way kind of...
They usually bracket those things together, like math and science, English and
history.
Reading.
I want to say right there, like, and this is I know I'm like interrupting. I apologize.
No.
And I'll predicate this by saying that I do have an interest in education. You guys know that I formally went to school to be a professor.
You did.
I do actually have an interest in education. It was for history, anthropology, so on and so forth. And I'm just listening to you say this right now, and the idea that you would teach English and history, and I do see how they intermingle because I haven't.
Well, they're closer than the opposite.
Well, no, I mean, I understand some things are closer than other things. Yes, we could be talking about fishmongering, and nuclear reactors. I agree. There's some things that are closer, further away from that. But the idea that you are qualified to teach these things. Because I personally, I went to school to like be qualified to teach history.
Yeah.
And in practice, I am qualified to do that. I love history. I love to talk about it. I do question my own credentials this day.
Oh, and I know that very much about you.
Yes. But the idea that you could be qualified to really teach these things when you're also paid like, 50, 60,
Exactly right.
Whatever grand a year, you're not. That's the thing. You can't teach those things. It's incredible. Like there's a lot that goes into that.
You essentially look at like the district level syllabi and you do the best.
That's what it is. In that, especially in that age group, they're more actors, and because they are given a script, they can't actually.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's that
like
you're not getting an education. That said, I just wanted to chime in.
It's easier to be a teacher because you have to go by this guideline. Like
yes and no.
Yes and no.
We will revisit that. We will absolutely revisit that. So like in 6th grade, I had this teacher, Mr. Kerr, who was a language history teacher at the most vague level you can, and then Miss Rowe, who was math and science, and she was awful. So going into 6th grade, I guess I was going into puberty, and I just didn't give a fuck about any of this shit. I was very quickly a problem child. Mr. Kerr, in fact, he just called me, because he refused to learn my first name. He just called me Dan, because it's the first part of my last name.
Close enough.
Yeah. No, and that's... And like
that's like a sign of disrespect?
Well, whatever. It doesn't even really matter. Like, there is a good hook to the end of this point, but like, I didn't want to do anything.
It's soul breaking. It's soul crushing when you go to school, especially like when you're in it for now you're 6 years deep, 7 years deep, and you're like, is there a fucking end to all of this stuff?
Especially at that age when you're a walking boner.
It's called getting a job, Dan.
So when you're like, when you go like 6th grade, 7th grade, you're starting to notice girls for the first time, unless you were like an early bloomer in 5th grade and you're like, oh, that girl's awesome for some reason. What's going on with her?
Also, like, I was a little bit of an early bloomer. I probably have some level of attention deficit. I just didn't give a fuck about school anymore. Yeah. Because I realized there were things that were more interesting to me. But now, as a problem child, this is the age of like Ritalin and shit like that. And my parents didn't want to do that. I started every day from the beginning of 6th grade on a cup of black coffee.
Oh, wow. This was the stimulant they gave you.
Because my parents didn't want to do
Ritalin. And you called me old.
Yeah, my pediatrician I had at the time had me start every day going into middle school. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, had a cup of black coffee.
It had to be black.
Well, no,
he doesn't need sugar.
But I don't like sweet things, so like black coffee.
But at that age, I didn't know if he was just like, no, black only. The milk will interrupt.
No, it was more or less coffee. But like my father drank black coffee, so I drank black coffee, and I went every day to school. Hyped up on a cup of black coffee in 6th grade. Jeez.
I guess that's a natural way.
And
natural Ritalin?
Well, because that's what I do now.
But it didn't help my not getting along with my teachers.
Oh.
Now you're more aware and focused. Now you're better at giving them shit.
Yeah. And also I have a teacher that refuses to call me by my first name. And he's just challenging me by calling me just like, and it's not even my last name. It's just Dan.
I think that's really, I think you just hit the nail on the head, though. It's that you're being challenged.
No, I was
in a negative way, not in like a way where it's like, I want to challenge you and let's see what you do with this.
So,
but it's like a challenging, like, come at me, bro.
But on
that's
the
a shitty way to be treated.
That's what life is sometimes you're gonna find somebody coming at you.
It gets much more bizarre. So right before Christmas, like I did whatever in the first semester. I got like a C average, if you will. And like, I wasn't a rambunctious child. I just did not want to do what this teacher made me want. Like my homeroom teacher, if you will, was Mr. Kerr. Leading into Christmas, I just wasn't doing what he wanted me to do.
Yeah.
I was staying at my aunt's house over a weekend, and my mom called me. He's like, your teacher's here on a Sunday.
Wow.
Sunday morning. She called my aunt next to the fact to me. She's like, you need to bring Justin home now because his teacher is at the front door. My aunt brought me home and Mr. Kerr was there and he's like, I can't get him to do anything I want him to do. Like he's essentially like a piece of shit kid. And my mom's like,
you're a great school teacher.
Well, no, my mom was like,
he's reaching out like Crazy Joe.
My mom's like, I appreciate you coming here, but don't ever fucking come here again.
Yeah, fucking A. God bless your
Like,
mother.
She gave it enough rope. Be like, you need to get your ass home now to see that this is what
How
this
pissed off I
psycho
am.
is doing.
Exactly. Because everybody's doing
But also, like, when I got home, she's like, say what you need to say, but you are fucking out of here.
Exactly, yeah. It's power moves.
Yeah. And, like, I get it. We'll just fast-pace to the end of the year. He stopped by my parents' home again. And he's like, and I wasn't doing good. And he's like, he's not going to amount to anything. He's not doing anything, blah, 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 blah. And my mom's like, whatever.
At least he'll never be a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in sixth grade at that time, you had to take a standardized test at the end of the year. And I scored number 3 in the tri-state area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he came to my house once again to apologize to my mother.
Ah, what a bitch.
Because
I would never. I would go to the grave with that.
What is this guy?
I might be dumber than a kid, but no one will ever know.
By my grades, I should have been left back in sixth grade. So I scored number 3 in the tri-state area and then got immediately put in the John Hopkins watch group. So I immediately got pushed forward to 7th grade, which really pissed Mr. Kerr off.
Yeah.
And like, I never became a better student. I didn't.
What I take away from this is really the question of what is the opinion, because I have mine, obviously, of what's education is supposed to be. Because that's where I come at it from.
I think that does. It raises a very significant question.
It's a weird definition for what we know it.
Well,
It doesn't seem correct.
I think that the word education, I think, is very clear. I think that word means that you're gaining some sort of a knowledge about how to do something, right? So then what is it that you're learning to do?
Well, what I would say, this is something I learned later. So I'm not this now, but in my job, like I worked as a union representative for a short period of time. And I can tell you, it's not fully this, but like, there is a difference between punitive and constructive.
Yeah.
And I think that's where education could take a bit. Instead of like just punishing somebody for not understanding something, yeah, people understand different things. And like, it's always going to be an imperfect system. You can't cater to everybody. You can't. It doesn't exist. But stop punishing kids for like...
well, they don't know what to do with them.
I mean, I'll piggyback on that.
Yeah,
I do agree, but I feel like it's this punitive versus reward system.
Yeah,
it's that my mother always described me as a contrarian. I like to think that she did that in a endearing way. But I think
for you.
What's that?
Good luck for you.
Oh,
I hope it's as
I've gotten this far. I'm barely half your age. I think that's really, to me, that's like what it comes down to. It's what are you attempting to achieve? And I think that when you're looking at grade school, middle school and so on and so forth, I don't think that we're really trying to achieve the things that I think there's a level of self denial.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that we're all acting like we're like teaching kids math and stuff.
I don't see that at all. Level, but like at like up to 3rd grade, where you're at that age where you're actually learning. Like, all right, then maybe break off from all this rhetoric.
I don't see it there either. To be quite honest with you,
because I remember like kindergarten through 3rd as being like, it's just fun, like we're just doing like there's some structure, but the structure is necessary just to exist. And it was just all like kind of silly fun shit. It's like you're learning basic things like language structure and science. And
if you allow me to make a point right here after my story. So like I said, like I was challenged, blah, 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 and they had to push me forward and blah, blah, blah. I don't take that as like a point of pride. For me, it's not like, oh, haha, I showed you. Like, there is definitely an aspect to that, but like, it also put me in a world. So like going into 7th grade, I took my SAT for the first time in September of my 7th grade because of that fucking score.
Yeah.
Which also I wasn't at that level.
Yeah.
Either.
Everything is a blessing in this regard. I will say this. I'll share with you guys a personal story. Dan, I don't know if you even know this one. I think that what we describe grade school, let's just like encapsulate it within that.
Yeah.
I think that what we describe grade school as. So there's one version of it where we're teaching you basic skills. And
I think it's like basic skills and like basic socialization.
Right. Yeah. So the socialization part, I cannot disagree with that. You are learning that there.
Yeah.
I mean, by default.
Yeah.
It's just a fact.
No, it's just by the nature of what it is.
I don't think that you're learning the other part of it. I think that that's a way in which we, and by way, I mean as a society, government, people, we describe it in this way as a way of describing another thing, which is, of course, I'm going to go back to this society, being a member of it, so on and so forth, learning to obey, etc. For myself, my earliest memory going to school, grade school, and it was Walnut Street where you and I both went in. My earliest memory, and for me, it was an exercise and very much so, I would say very much so influential on many things that I learned about society. When I first went there, and Dan, you may or may not remember this, but I was like the second darkest person at that school, besides Brandon, if you remember him. It's a guy named Brandon who was actually properly black. There was another black guy that I didn't know at all. But either way,
we had Hanif at our school.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, this is going back a ways. Tom's River was pretty clean back then.
Yeah.
But either way, I remember like one of the very first days of school, and I don't have like a great memory for this as you guys do. So mine is like very clouded after this. But I do remember the very first day of school before we met, Dan. I was wearing some sort of like a beanie or something like that because I had like a fro.
A tube.
Yeah, I had a fucking fro. I was the only kid with a fro besides the black guy Brandon, and who just had a fro, and like so everybody knew that.
I already called that.
Yeah. So I had a fro, but like I didn't come from like my family's like black, we're mixed, and I was like told to pull it off, and we were like all like meeting. Yeah, like I wasn't because you're not allowed to wear a hat.
Yeah,
so, like, I was forced to like take it off.
I gotcha. Yeah,
and I was very shy. I had no friends there, so I had to take it off. And as I did so, not only did all of the students there laugh, because there's all of us basically, the entire class, but it was also the principal who got involved in that,
and he was laughing.
Yes, he was also laughing. I was the butt of all of the jokes. Yes,
that truly does not surprise me in the least.
The principal of that school was a piece of shit.
Yes, he was.
I had my own encounter with him, and also the vice principal of that school.
Yes, yeah. So like I obviously I didn't have like any type of a moxie at that age. I was a shy kid. You know? So like I was just like petrified, obviously. And then this led into all of these other as I would describe it, it led into all these other circumstances which kind of built upon themselves in my own personal life. My point being is that to tie in with this, I don't really think that the value of that education as we describe it at that young age, I don't really think it has anything to do with teaching us about these empirical things. I don't think we're learning math or science or history, and at least
I think that's the byproduct. At best.
Yeah, I think we describe it this way. We say that we're teaching history. This is the only one that'll comment.
History is a different thing than math and science.
That's
we
fine.
teach that.
I don't want to comment upon math and science and so on and so forth because I'm not educated enough in those.
If I could comment for myself in that era, that was the backdrop. The social aspect was what was more kind of important, not particularly influenced by the schooling, but like as our age,
interacting with other human beings. So my point is, though, is that yes, exactly that, Justin. But on top of that, it was also that what I learned personally, what I learned from that, and it took me many, many years, what I learned was how you are judged based off of your appearance, which is a valuable lesson. In other words, I'm not just shitting on it. I'm saying that you are judged based off of how you look.
Yeah, it's not right, but it is true.
It's true. Yeah, exactly. Like we can all live in a fantasy world where you never get judged based off how you look. But the reality is that you do.
You did.
So, I mean, was the principal wrong to do it in this way? Yes. I did feel very embarrassed as a kid.
Christ,
and I very much so feel, like I still to this day, I'm like, man, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it taught me big lessons that ultimately I was going to learn either way.
Yeah, but you learned them a little quicker.
I learned them quicker based off of that. Obviously, that was not his intention. I don't want to give this guy like solid credit for
No,
this.
he made you feel like shit. He got
exactly.
He got what he wanted.
But I learned how to feel this way. I learned what it felt like. And that is the lesson.
There is a lesson
I feel like that's what it is.
That's a piece of shit thing too, Moses. Like you're going to make this child feel like a piece of shit.
Well, that's just a piece of shit person.
I remember, like, I don't think it was the principal in this situation because you were young in that, and I think the principal had changed. Like, I think maybe after our time being.
He did. I know that guy too. He made sure that I never got to see recess again. Let's talk about that guy.
What happened?
He was locked in a box from September to June.
What happened with me with this dude is we always used to get like freaking ushered into like the gym for like some sort of freaking goddamn event that nobody wanted to go to. Nobody
Some
had
assembly.
an assembly. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
that is the
That's
word.
the word. Yeah, that's the word for us to just gather and waste time before we waste time.
Yeah.
Even though we were just wasting time to interrupt this.
That
from
literally
time.
scratched an odd itch in my brain.
and they were doing some sort of thing where like the kids were going up and singing or some shit like that. And one of the kids had like, I'm sorry, but your voice was cracking every 2 seconds. You couldn't carry a tune with a
That was
bucket.
me.
So like the kid and I that were like seated next to each other, I think we were kind of buddies. So we were laughing like, this is ridiculous. Like, why the fuck are we here? And then I could hear something off in the distance. And I made the stupid mistake of looking behind me, and the vice principal at the time called me over, and he literally just started like pointing the finger right in my face. I ought to fucking belt you.
Yeah.
He did
Did he drop the F-bomb?
He didn't say
belt, but the
fuck.
belt.
But like,
No, I've been
yeah.
to Catholic school. Okay.
And it was also
Ooh, scary.
like the difference between your story and mine. I was a very like I've always been a fly under the radar type of guy. So even in school, I was like, I just don't want to fuck with anybody. Leave me alone. I'll get my C or my B, especially fucking.
Let me just
It's
move
been my
through.
modus
And I'll just-
operandi for fucking forever.
And so I was just standing out there. So I was kind of known for just being a quote unquote good kid.
Yeah.
And so when my teacher rolled by and she's like, Dan, the hell are you doing out here? Again, not actually swearing, but like, what are you doing out here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not really going to answer.
I don't know shit about
Yeah.
fuck.
I was just like, I got pulled aside. Apparently I did something that upset somebody.
Yeah.
But like, even if I was being a dick in the situation by laughing at a kid that's going up there and like doing something, you're going to threaten a child with being belted? Like, fuck you fucking piece of shit. Like, there again, we said it at the top of the show. Power dynamic.
Yeah.
What am I as a child going to say to this man who's threatened to fucking like take his belt off and start whipping me?
It's so funny. So like, I don't remember much about the early days, but I remember having a hard time because you had to do the thing where you had to read in front of the class.
Yeah.
And that's where my whole thing came to be apparent. I had a speech impediment and like a stammer and like stuff
I think
like
that's
that.
how they find it. Like,
I don't remember being ostracized, but I remember towards the end of elementary school, I was run here, like the K through 5.
Yeah.
I know I was definitely put into it in 2nd grade. And I was like, I finally became fine enough to like speak in public or read in public in like 5th grade. And it was just because like on the back end of it was just like, I couldn't be bothered to like, I didn't give a fuck about any of this. And it's hilarious to say for like an elementary school kid.
Yeah.
But that's what followed me into like, I always wanted to appease. So like in elementary school, like, yeah, I was like an AB kid because I just wanted anybody to be fucking happy about what I was doing. When I got to middle school and I just saw like, and I'm just like, no, fuck this.
I feel like that's, and I say this from the perspective of trying to very much so like respect what it is to be an educator, and I do respect like what goes into that.
It
I know
takes
that
a special person.
it's an enormous sacrifice.
It is
when you're into it, yes. But to tie in with that, I think that it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, for myself, I drew a conclusion not so different from yours, Justin, where for my own perspective, it became one where I became like a lifelong rebel.
Yeah.
You know, I'm intrinsically opposed to authority. And I think that that's probably the downside to what like modern education is. I think that it kind of like foments this type of belief
because
system.
you are forced to go there. You don't want to be there. You're forced to learn something. And even like in the same situation that Justin was in, I was a dimwit with math. And so I had to stay after class. So I had to stay there for an extra 45 fucking minutes to learn more math. It was the fucking one subject I didn't want to fucking learn.
My teachers literally called me a fucking loser.
Yeah.
And then I scored number 3 in the state, and they had to eat their fucking words. Not that it helped me any. It didn't.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, but that's a good personal vengeance that you got. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
you guys, you don't.
having a teacher come and tell my parents I'm a fucking loser,
Yeah.
and like literally was hell-bent. He's like, "Oh no, your kid's not gonna fucking. I'll have him next year." Literally, Mr. Kerr was a fucking cunt. Fuck him.
It's funny to me how, like, and I, without even diving into the stories, because I feel like we can replicate them many times over.
Oh, absolutely.
Even for any given listener.
Yeah.
But I will
this was
say,
the crucial moment for me.
I will say
I had to
that.
prove I was not a fucking loser, and I knew better than
so
fucking
many
you.
times criticism that's leveled like that. I mean, I'll put it this way: when you're a child, like, and we're talking about like a proper child,
Yeah.
and criticism like that is leveled upon you, it's not being leveled upon you by fucking, Jeff Bezos.
No,
It's not
no.
like
Yeah, it's
somebody
not the
who's
pinnacle.
like really
It's-
done it. Not that I want to give that guy praise, but as an example. But I mean, like, it's being leveled upon you by somebody that, like,
Especially a
again, not
member,
to shit on teachers, but I mean, like,
a member
if
of
you're a
your
great teacher, God bless you. That's
Yeah.
a hard job. But like, you're a fucking like elementary fucking grade fucking math teacher, and you're gonna shit on somebody because they suck at math. Fuck yourself.
I had this instance happen. I think it was 6th or 7th grade, and I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
So it was small classes, and so everybody knew kind of everybody from
top to
kindergarten to
bottom.
eighth.
Top to bottom, yeah.
And we had a substitute. No, it was 7th grade. The teacher, the proper, was a kid in my class's mother. So he had that to deal with.
Yeah.
And she was out. He was in. This guy was in.
Where did she
and,
touch you?
Well, him.
Show us on the beer.
I was like I was just goofing off and being a kid, and he made me stand outside with erasers.
Oh.
Arms outstretched.
Christ.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Because it fit the punishment. I forget what I was.
No, who
like,
knows? Who
granted, I deserved some kind of punishment, but that was
Yeah.
the worst because he would
come.
come out every 5 minutes.
So
interrupt the-
did he diddle you, or was there no like pie at the end of this rainbow?
no, he was just a substitute. It was the priest.
All right.
It was the priest. He gets the good lookings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I imagine you used to be much more attractive.
That's how I got all the chocolate milk.
Nice. Love that.
So the only time I got really punished like that in terms of, other than being threatened to be belted, I remember my brother and I would always go over to one of the neighbors' houses because my mom would have to go to work.
Yeah.
And then we'd either like take the bus together or whatever, but we'd have to hang out there the very beginning of the day. And so at one point, the 2 older boys decided like, we're not going to go to school today. And so we're just like, all right.
Yeah.
It's just
That
me.
sounds great.
It's just like me and the other kid's younger brother.
Yeah.
And so at one point, I think they kind of hash it out. They're like, all right, I don't think we can we'll get in trouble if we actually don't go.
Yeah.
So like we skipped like the beginning of the day, but then we ended up walking back. And then they ran into this analysis paralysis situation because if you remember Walnut Street, there was that little forest right behind it practically, but it was like a little path. And we were just like standing out there, and the older boys were just
As some children do.
yeah. What are we doing? Are we skipping or are we going in? Are we skipping or are we going in? Because if we go in, they're going to be like,
This is the crossroads.
yeah, what's our excuse? Like, you missed the bus and you walked all the way here? You're too young to be fucking walking here. Also, by the way, no, we weren't, because I had to fucking walk all the way back home every single time. My mom threw a fucking fit when they were like, you live too close for the bus. We live too close for the bus?
Yeah,
What
that's
the
a
fuck
stupid
is that?
thing.
You got 2 legs, don't you?
Yeah. It's just like I had to walk 15
But don't
miles in the
use them.
snow with no shoes.
Uphill both ways.
But we got caught
Yeah.
in the fucking woods.
Yeah.
So we got
By who?
by, I don't know, some
Whoever.
groundskeeper or some
Woods?
freaking person.
Like woods truancy officers?
It's-
I
It was
find the
fucking
biggest
border
narcissistic
security.
janitors.
yeah.
Ever since the Republicans got it, it's just gone south.
Yeah, thanks, Obama.
I think Clinton was president at this
Yeah.
point. But what ended up happening was the youngest, he was free to go.
Yeah.
Like he has
Yeah,
no
no,
agency.
yeah.
You just go back to class. You
You
little
didn't know
rascallion.
better, you young
The most
rascal.
dangerous for you to go alone.
You need to take this wooden sword. So it's myself, my brother, and his friend in the principal's office. And for whatever reason, he's like talking to the 2 older boys. And then he looks at me and it's sort of like, you guys remember that old G.I. Joe like parody cartoon that was on YouTube?
I very much do.
So it's like, it was like that one where it was the Australian, it's like, you You're the ringleader.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the principal did to me. It's like, this is your fault, blah, 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 blah. And this is kind of how I learned something. I think I might have said this on the podcast already, but like my brother, who was kind of like, he was in 6th grade, so he had to have been like 12 or something like that.
Makes
He's
sense.
like, hey man, leave the kid alone.
Yeah.
Like he's saying this to, well, freaking, and that's when I kind of learned, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you can actually say shit to fucking adults, because like if they're crossing a line and they're being an asshole, especially to somebody that you care about, then you fucking better say something, because you can't let your little brother just get picked apart.
He just finished listening to the wall.
Dan, I gotta pause you real quick, because what this immediately reminded me of is that you were what's his face from the end of the movie Waiting. And
Justin Long.
You.
Oh, God.
You're the biggest piece of shit I've ever met.
It's like,
You just
what
look
the fuck did I do to you?
The fuck did I do to you?
Oh, I'm Dane Cook. In this
Yeah,
situation.
that's
Dane Cook,
That's what you had to do.
That's you. You're just like, you're looking around to see who it is. It's like, oh shit.
All right. So, like I said, like I was destined to fail in 6th grade, and by the point of scoring so high on the standardized test, forced into 7th grade, a teacher of the 4 was very good. This guy should never have been there.
Yeah.
This is the good guy.
He was. He was a very Catholic dude.
Oh, Moses, that speaks to you.
Yeah.
No, I know the type.
He caused a lot of problems, much beyond me or anybody else. So I went into 7th grade being a garbage student, but being in line to take the SAT in October of 7th grade year, which no one should have to fucking do.
Yeah,
That's a ridiculous thing.
I took the SAT for the first time.
I took it on LSD.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
No, I literally took the SAT for the first time the very beginning of my 7th grade year, because I scored so high in that standardized test.
So fucking early.
Well, I didn't know how.
When
to
are you
math.
supposed to take it? Legit question.
High school.
17, 18, I think.
The SAT,
Yeah.
you take the PSAT
16,
in your
17 or
sophomore year,
Yeah.
and you take the SAT in your junior year.
And what is it? It's like half math and half.
Yeah, half, yeah.
I don't know if I honestly don't think I ever took it.
I took it. I think I took it twice, and I scored retard, which is actually funny too.
That's quite surprising, Dan.
Yeah.
You're pretty
I
educated.
did well on it.
I
you know.
suck at freaking standardized tests.
I'm super good at standardized
So
tests.
that's where I succeeded.
Yeah.
That's what saved me from 6th grade to 7th grade. I kill it at standardized tests.
I always did well on them like at an earlier age, but it's like, because it's a made
But
up.
I was never like with the SAT. I never was close to 1600.
Yeah.
But I was like, I danced around even from the first time I took it, from like the 13, 14, because I kill it at standardized tests.
And I want to jump in right there, Dan, because it's like, and
shows
this is
the
why I'm
flaw of the
surprised by you,
system.
Dan, with this, but it's very much so, it's a scripted thing. So if you can read that, basically it's like that they're telling you the answer that they want, and then you just give them that answer back. So the only reason I can actually get poorly with that, Dan, is that you're such a fucking contrarian, even more than me, that you would be unable
But
to
also,
do that.
like, this is absolutely straight up. Pete and I met in high school. When he came to my high school, we had third-party friends who literally scored just above what you do for putting your name on the list.
Oh, damn right. Yeah.
And I remember he's like, "Oh, I got 480 on the SAT."
Killing it.
And I was like, "Oh, fuck. Good for you."
Yeah. Da-da-da-da.
But if I can tackle back a little bit. So I was force pushed into the 7th grade, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
It was nice not to be left back. But yeah, I was put into a tough group of teachers. And one in particular, he was very good, very different than me. He was a very religious guy, a Catholic guy, but also he taught science and like wasn't precious about it. Like literally, like we dissected scuttlefish with the red-handled scissors. He checked me fully. He's like, you're not
good
producing.
teacher does that.
It's good to have that.
Yeah. This
good
teacher
teacher does
fully, like, there was fucked up shit where I fucked up, and like it was called, I will not say his name, but like his name headlock, because I was a disruptive child. I would be dragged around in the headlock, going from class to class. But like, he actually taught me shit, but also like he did a thing to emulate the Holocaust.
Huh. What?
Oh no! He got in a bunch of trouble for this. it wasn't good, but like I appreciate his gusto, if you know what I mean. He literally did a percentage analysis. X amount are German Gestapo, X amount are Jews, X amount are this, X amount are this. And it was just luck of the draw of cards.
Oh, that's
And-
a fun game.
Yeah, until all the parents called because their kids were Jews.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's not where you do that.
Parents
I mean, know your
interpreted that
crowd.
in the way wrong way.
Yeah.
But also they were not necessarily wrong because the ones that got labeled Gestapo really abused the shit out of it.
Of course,
Oh,
yeah.
so it
That's the prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He literally took that as like a higher level education thing and
Yeah.
brought it down to
It
7.
probably
it
was, but that
is,
wasn't that wasn't the venue for it.
Well, I mean, I'll disagree with you there,
Yeah.
Moses. I think that, I mean, basically what we're talking about is like a classic, like, prisoner's dilemma,
Yeah.
where you put people in a situation where some have power and some don't,
Yeah.
and then you observe how those people act.
Yeah.
And it is considered
the
to be.
problems came because, like, some kids that were like SS were shitty and wouldn't let the fucking Jews use the bathroom.
Yeah. Typically,
It gave the wrong people power.
if you engage in that type of a psychological experiment,
Yeah.
then what you'll find is that people very much so do become that exact thing.
Yeah.
They become
It lit- like,
great
his
Gestapo
experiment
officers. you
was
know?
literally a perfect example of what happens with the human experience.
Exactly, yeah. And people don't like
What
that.
grade was this?
7th grade.
Oh, maybe that's an appropriate time.
See,
for that.
you're because
That's an
my
appropriate
sentiment
time for
would
that.
be is that if we were
What
actually
I was a
thinking
Jew,
third graders.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But-
that's too young.
but my
Yeah.
mom was like, I'm gonna fucking cuddle. I'm like, don't you fucking? I'm like, this is like a fucking experiment.
Yeah, my sentiment about that would be very much so that it's that if we are to educate
Yeah.
people, if our goal is to actually
That's how
educate
it's
young
way to
people, learn from,
educate.
well, then this is
Yeah.
exactly
It's
what you
through
do.
life
Yeah.
experience,
And it doesn't matter the age, because what you're really talking about is very fundamental human reactions to things.
Yeah.
It's how, in other words, you're not being told be bad to these people.
No.
You're saying you're in charge.
You
of
are
these people.
you are given
How do
these
you
rights.
respond? Yeah.
This is what you have
Yeah,
at your
here's the
disposal.
rules.
So
Abide by them.
Yeah, I
to the
think
letter,
that
and-
that's so quintessential, and this is exactly why we don't want this in the education system. If that system
Right.
is to
Oh, it
teach
makes a
us how
better
to be good
thinker?
citizens, I think that this is it teaching us the wrong lessons if we're to be good Americans.
I remember, and I remember it so distinctly. And like I was more middle ground. I wasn't like bottom line, and like I wasn't personally like not allowed to use the bathroom or anything. But like some people were by the card draw.
Yeah,
I was like a vague German citizen.
Yeah.
I wasn't part of like SS or anything like that. But I remember the kerfuffle it created.
oh yeah,
And like, but I distinctly remember that because he was literally unapologetic about it.
no, exactly.
YouTube loves this story. I already can feel it. YouTube is
Yeah.
absolutely gonna love this part.
Don't worry, I'm from Argentina.
Well, also now, this is also the guy that like I went overseas with when I was 18. He was the one that created these trips that I puked in a bidet in Jesolo, Italy, and flooded a whole apartment
I
building.
remember this still.
He's a good dude, but also like he's been what do you call that? Where
Ostracized.
no, not ostracized, emboldened to believe in the full doctrine of the Catholic faith.
I understand.
Oh,
So like he doesn't talk to me anymore.
Mm.
My sentiment about the teaching style that was employed
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is that, and I'll go back to the point that I've more or less been making the entirety of the time, which is that there's an element to education which involves actually educating people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, young people, old people, whatever. In other words, like
exposing
Yeah.
to out of the pocket situations
Yeah.
and like
we're describing this, and I know that the context of this particular episode is one in which we're talking about, young people and ourselves when
Yeah.
we were young. But I very much so feel that this is one of those things where it's that one, we're always being educated.
yeah.
Yeah.
It never really stops. It didn't begin. It didn't stop. It's your education began the moment you were born, and it'll die when you die.
And
you
some
know.
things don't work for you and you figure it out.
Right.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that education has different goals.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about this time period when we're, young people, basically, whatever you want to call it, like 5 to 15, let's say,
Yeah.
that there is, when you're talking about an institutional educational system, it has goals. And that's what that's what we should be aware of and should acknowledge. And whether it's right or wrong, that's up to, beauty is in the eye of the beholder kind of scenario. But I think that myself, I view that as what are you getting out of it? And I think that it is very valuable to, I think obviously education it's how you learn, I mean, you never stop learning, God knows I'm fucking ignorant about goddamn everything. So I learn every day. But I think that what we look at and when we judge these things, it should be viewed through this framework of like, what are you trying to teach? Did you succeed in that goal? And if you didn't, then what was flawed here?
I think that school is just the social integration, and the classes that you're assigned and have to go to are kind of arbitrary. Like, if you connect with something, like if you like something that you heard, whatever teacher.
I believe in the socialization aspect to a degree.
The socialization is the key component.
Yeah.
But it's also trying to set the foundation. Like, learn 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, but
before you can learn algebraic expressions.
Well, that's just the natural progression of learning. You can't know something you can't know the end all of it before you know the beginning of it.
I'll disagree with you. And I would love to hear the contrary point to this. I was having this conversation earlier today, as a matter of fact, with the contractor who's been working on my house, somebody who I respect very much. I don't know how to do basic math.
Yeah.
No, well,
I can do an architectural drawing that's very accurate.
Yeah.
I learned to do the second part of that by doing it. So I'm not saying
but
that
they're two separate things in that format.
My point is that you learn by doing. My point is that you don't necessarily need to go in the order in which it's described. I think that sometimes we should even look beyond the point that was just made.
I think if you're going to be doing calculus, you should know how to add.
Here's what I would say, if I'm allowed to jump in right here. I think when you get into the latter part of that 6th, 7th, 8th into the quantifiable high school age, maybe offer things that are not so much just college prep, if you would, and maybe something into
intuitive. Yeah, something intuitive that
my point really is mere. I agree with that entirely.
I feel like
people have said to me many times, and I'll pat myself on the back about it, but people have said to me many times that I have a good understanding of the English language. I use a lot of big words, which is what I think that means, that I have a good understanding of the vocabulary and so on and so forth.
All words.
I can't read a fucking book. Yeah. I've all of the books that I was told to read. In theory, I can.
It's annoying.
Yeah, I struggle.
Well, you like
with
the history books.
I struggle with every book, and I'm not ashamed to admit that with everything.
I know with the fictional, but
no. I struggle with every book. I have a lot of difficulty reading, and yet I'm very happy to receive the compliment of that I speak well and so on and so forth. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know.
You do,
but I'm happy to take the compliment.
Those can be two different things.
That's
because I think I got my vocabulary not from reading, but from writing.
Oh, yeah,
when
that's
I was
fair.
a teenager, I did a lot of writing when I was a teenager.
So then we both have a good understanding of the language.
Yeah.
And then the way in which sometimes reading is depicted, the way that it's always been depicted to me, is that you will not be able to communicate well unless you're able to understand what you're able to read and so on and so forth.
I guess to a degree.
I'm just saying what I've been told throughout my entire life, and I'm going to bring that back to the education
to a degree. Yeah, well, you are in the education system, you are told that you aren't good enough.
Well,
you're doing it, but you're not doing it good enough.
You either try to meet or you fall short thereof.
Yeah. But it's also when you have standardized testing or just even standards just to meet, some kids are just never, not every kid is going to learn the exact same way, which is the inherent flaw of having the public school system.
And there's not even a whole lot of good teachers, but there's not nearly enough of teachers to facilitate that, to treat every kid on a base, but
boys and girls learn inherently different.
They do.
If you're a guy, you will learn much easier by doing.
Yes, hands-on.
Public school system is more facilitated towards girls.
It's more of a generalization.
Girls have it. Well, I mean, yes, everything can change. There's always outliers to everything.
And there's aberrations to everything.
There are aberrations for everything. But generally speaking, women have an easier time in school. That's why, when you were a kid, all the smartest kids, especially the early stages, were girls because they can sit patiently and absorb the information.
And
Meanwhile, you're a little fuck and you just want to run around and eat dirt.
It's not where I really succeeded from middle school on were hands-on.
Yes.
I was able to take woodshop time after time from middle school to high school. I was the only one allowed to use the lathe because that's how I learned. Hands-on learning, metal class, woodshop. That's where I absolutely succeeded. Didn't matter for shit for standardized testing, but that's where I shone through to do whatever the fuck I wanted.
Yeah.
I went to Catholic school, so we weren't allowed to have woodshop because Jesus is the only carpenter.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
He'll build all the crosses.
That guy couldn't build the cross he was fucking hung on.
It is so
Terrible
funny
carpenter.
because, like, I think we all generally know it. I think people even generally knew back then. It's an antiquated system.
It's about making you a good citizen.
Yeah.
But it's also really hard because I wanted to make this point. We kind of glossed over it because
We
you
did,
keep bringing
a little
back
bit,
middle school. It is so fucking hard to just sit there when you're 13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And there is this girl over here and she's dangling her legs around and you're like, I don't know how to study algebra because whatever's happening over here is
absolutely
fucking
true
fascinating.
because all of a sudden Michelle has like this is going to sound crass, but like she shows up in September. She's got size D tits, and like we're all like,
And I'm just coming off the news when the weather lady was wearing those tits so well.
It's a confusing time.
It's a confusing time. I'm not going to speak to what women go through. I have a little bit of a knowledge just because of my sisters.
Yeah.
But like that's much different because
It's gotta be terrible.
What's that?
It's gotta be terrible.
It's terrible because everything's transforming the body and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden you have this mongrel.
Yeah.
Who's just like, he doesn't know not to he doesn't know not to stare yet.
Looking all sorts of good.
I had to learn that lesson one time because my example was very much based on reality. I was in high school, I was a freshman, and this one girl had her legs crossed, and I was just like, I got lost.
Entranced.
I got entranced with her, like just dangling her leg and all that stuff. And I think it was one of my team, because I was on the football team for a little bit. And one of my teammates leaned in and like, enjoying the show. And I'm like,
oh, fuck.
I thought this was private.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm sorry, I went to
between me and God.
I went to a different
group
place.
creeping.
So that's also the thing. You have kids that are encroaching into like their biological like fucking.
They're figuring out
puberty.
sexuality, and you know everything feels weird.
And it's like, how do you expect to control that in any way, shape, or form?
And you're putting them together.
Yeah, you're putting them all in the same room.
Yeah.
And you're expecting, like, oh, they'll learn.
No,
It's not, and my opinion would be, it's not just that, like, putting them in the same room, that's fine.
Whatever, yeah.
It's that you're applying these particular rules
Yeah, these
to
standards,
that's the artificial part. Being in the same room, that's not artificial.
But they're the same artificial rules that we live by every day.
My point is that the artificial
like
rule is that's the anomaly. I'm not saying that other people aren't wrong too. I'm saying that that's the part that makes it unusual.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult to
We
adapt
have the structure that tells us whether we're men or women.
Yeah.
That like it's all bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true anymore either.
Well, I mean, that's right, but I think that, like, I mean, to use this example, kids in puberty, throwing them all together, that's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Well,
but applying these rigorous rules, that is the thing that every culture has done, that's for sure.
In different aspects.
But that it's unique each time, and those rules are the thing that really affect how they interact.
And they're all arbitrary.
But also at the same time.
Exactly. They're arbitrary. That's my point.
But also at the same time, it's like, oh, by the way, pay attention.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
I have no idea. I know we're talking about school, but I have no idea how any guys in boot camp that were in a co-ed division learned anything. Because at that age, you're 18, 19, 20. All you're thinking of is,
Oh, yeah.
and you're expected for this 2-month time frame when you're not allowed to do that. And there's a chick in your division. Like even a 0 looks like a freaking 9 at that point.
Well, first of all, Dan, you're preaching to the question.
It's literally base level. It's separating the biological want.
Yeah.
We can all know where it comes from. Those of us that know history, we know where it comes from. It's a distillation down.
Yeah.
But it's like
practical evolution.
Yeah. And like still we're not away from it today. We'll never be away from it.
No.
It's biological wants, especially like in those teenage years, are so strong.
Yeah. There's just like off the frequency.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh no, peeking here. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of embracing that, we choose as a society
Yeah.
to try and in some way devalue it, to denigrate it to a degree.
Yeah. You got to
And-
repress it.
Yeah,
Well, it's not
exactly.
violence.
Yeah.
And, and then
Well,
you're
it's
left
not
with, and
violence,
then
it's
you're
all-
left with these problems, and you
yeah.
go and you fucking turn out your pockets and go, how did this happen to me?
Well, also to a degree too, it's like you're expected to repress it when you're in school.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
like, you're trying to go talk to a girl that you think is cute, and then it's like, oh no,
Which,
no talking.
which goes
no
back
passing, all
though,
that
if
stuff.
that goes back to my point that this education, it's not stupid for what it's trying to achieve, because it's telling you to repress it.
Yeah.
We're approaching it in this framework
No.
of like, look at how it's wrong, that it's invariably resulting in us having to repress this thing. That's the intent.
I think it's natural, though, that you're going to inevitably rebel against it because, first of all, it's an authority. It's not your parents. So it's the first authority
I agree with that.
you're not related to that you're like, no, fuck this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And you hate it there. I know there are kids that like school. At one point, I was just at one point in my life, I was like, listen, it's the fucking lesser of two evils right now.
At this point in my life, like right now,
Yeah.
I wish I could go back to high school. That was stupid easy. Stupid easy.
Bad news, Moses. This is all a dream.
Oh, I know.
And you have to go to school tomorrow.
Oh,
Fuck,
God
I think
damn
Mrs.
it, I thought I
Clifford
was
wouldn't
still in a
take any of
coma.
us.
Yeah.
You're also late for the bus.
No, I can't be. My mother drives it.
No, you. stupid
Yeah,
fuck.
there's my little fucking catch.
That was part of the dream, too.
Going to school.
That was
my
part of the
mother was
dream.
my bus driver up until sophomore year.
Can I share this with you guys? Speaking of dreams,
Please.
Oh, this wasn't a dream. This was my life.
but like, you said it. So when I first got out of, when I first I was back here.
Yeah.
After like going to the Navy and all that.
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
I had like two reoccurring nightmares. One, I was back in the Navy for some reason.
Oh.
Like the government would send me a letter. It's like, you actually didn't serve all the time, so we need you to go back.
What was your ship?
My ship was the USS George
It
Washington.
was the George Washington. Okay.
And
Best
then,
ship
I just needed some context in my head.
so I had like that was that.
Yeah.
Context.
Yeah.
And
Been in dry dock for like 100 years.
All the ships look the same to me.
the one that kind of ties into our episode at least, this one was I was in a Billy Madison situation
no.
where I had to like report back to kindergarten because my entire educational
So the Navy was just like grade school.
well, no, these were different reoccurring nightmares.
Oh,
Okay.
That I was just like, no, your entire education is false. Like, we have no proof of that.
Dan, I wish I was your psychiatrist.
Who was Steve Buscemi in this?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
That's Moses.
That's a good question.
Moses would be Steve Buscemi.
He hasn't even
He
met
was
me
prettier
yet.
than you, though.
Moses.
He hasn't met me yet, and I'm still in his dreams.
I will say, I don't get those dreams anymore, though, because
Yeah.
after I went back to college and,
Don't meet your heroes.
and
I know.
got my freaking master's degree in sports journalism of all fucking things, boom, done.
Boom,
There you go.
done.
Yeah.
Don't have to.
It's
not
called sequestering.
not getting the Billy Madison nightmares anymore.
Well, at least you traded up.
So now, what movie nightmares are you getting?
Total Recall.
I don't.
Oh, that is a step up. but-
That's definitely not a nightmare in my situation.
Oh, because of the 3 girl, yeah.
Welcome to Mars.
Should be on the back for slow dancing.
The scene where they're on Mars.
On the outside, yeah.
I always got you.
They redid that. Let's do that as an
We
episode.
will. Let's not talk about it right now.
Well, yeah, we could. Yeah,
Stay tuned.
That's one of the things. Listen, we should do more movie podcasts.
Oh God, that one is just so painful, and we will do it.
Let's do it.
I haven't
So,
seen the new
so if you want to see this Total Recall podcast, potentially, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Check us out on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure that you like, comment, share, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our content. Follow us on social media. We are at Loud and Drunk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure that you bookmark loudanddrunk.com. You
Yeah.
can catch up on the podcast, purchase some merch. All the links that we want you to kind of like visit, they're all there on the website. Also, patreon.com/loudanddrunk.
Yeah.
If you want to support this podcast, hashtag get Dan paid.
It's the best way to do it.
It's the best way
Yeah.
to support this podcast. It will motivate us to do more of these podcasts. It will motivate me to actually edit these
We
things.
gotta get that hashtag trending.
What he just said is the best way to fucking do it.
So, yeah, if you like this podcast and you want to see us grow, patreon.com/loudanddrunk. And any amount, $1 is more.
There are
more than
literally
enough.
base level. You never have to think about it. It's quite literally nothing. And there are levels that's less than what you would pay for a cup of coffee.
I've heard that a million times.
And also, too, it'll help us remain ad-free.
It does.
So if you guys are like,
That
oh,
helps
yeah, I
you.
didn't really like that phase that they were in when they were doing the ad reads,
Yeah.
you can help us out by, chipping in. But it was fun talking school with you guys, but school is out for summer.
thank God.
This podcast.
Thank
School's
God.
out forever.
So for Moses, Justin, and Hans,
I would like to go
Wouldn't
to Alice
talk.
Cooper now.
I'm Dan. Until next time,
We thank you.
I just want to quote the song Back to School from Back to School.
You'll
get lucky too.
A fetus in.
We're all getting laid.